All right, guys, it's 9:15. I'm going to get started. Hopefully my voice will hold out. I'm getting a little sick, so if I don't shake your hand today, it's on purpose. Not because I don't like you. Solely for your benefit. We'll see. All right, well, thanks for braving the cold, everybody. So I'm going to start with going through, we got our summary printed out from last week for Genesis 5 and 6. And so the summaries, the other ones I pulled out of the bucket, we're up to 3 now. So the first one, Genesis 1 and 2. What happens in Genesis 1 and 2? 2 stories of the creation, right? From different perspectives. God creates the universe and man. That was our summary from 1 and 2. 3 and 4. Hopefully this is starting to feel familiar. Life outside Eden begins, and with it the first murder and sin's escalation. That's where we get the Nahash, Satan shows up on the scene, and we get some of the descendants of Babel, or of Cain, I mean. And then finally, Genesis 5 and 6 we did last week was the genealogy of Noah, increasing corruption, including in the unseen realm, leading to the flood. So that's our story to this point. So, next, I thought we would do the summary for 7 and 8 until I realized I haven't even started 7 yet. So we'll read 7 and 8 first, and then we'll do the summary. And then we're going to hopefully get through 9 and 10 by the end. So, starting out with 7 and 8. Chapter 7 of Genesis, verse 1. Then the Lord said to Noah, "Go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, the male and its mate, and a pair of the animals that are not clean, the male and his mate, and 7 pairs of the birds of the heavens also, male and female, to keep their offspring alive on the face of all the earth. For in 7 days I will send rain on the earth, 40 days and 40 nights, and every living thing that I have made I will blot out from the face of the ground." And Noah did all that the Lord had commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood of the waters came upon the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him went into the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Of clean animals and animals that are not clean, and of birds and of everything that creeps on the ground, 2 and 2, male and female, went into the ark with Noah, as God had commanded Noah. And after 7 days the waters of the flood came upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. And the rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On the very same day, Noah and his sons, Shem and Ham and Japheth, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them, entered the ark. They and every beast according to its kind, and all the livestock according to their kinds, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, every winged creature. They went into the ark with Noah, 2 and 2 of all flesh, in which there was the breath of life, and those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. This is the only flood story where God shuts the door. Actually, of all the other 500 stories, that's one uniqueness of this, is that God is sort of taking care of his family. Something else I found interesting is, I don't know how many movies I've seen of Noah's Ark, especially as a kid. Every one of those movies, his neighbors are harassing him. Did you see his neighbors mentioned anywhere in that text? They are not mentioned anywhere in the Bible. The other people are not mentioned. It doesn't say they harassed him. It doesn't say they were trying to get on the ark when it started raining. It doesn't say they didn't believe him. It doesn't say they did believe him. They're just not mentioned. It's a reasonable conclusion, right? But this is not, it's just not there. And so keep in mind that the key part of the story maybe wasn't the other people. It was what Noah did, right? Noah was the one following God's plan here. So we'll start back in at 17. The flood continued 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. And all flesh died that moved on the earth, bird, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all mankind. Everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens. They were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those who were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. I mentioned last time that some people give God in the Old Testament a bad rap because he doesn't tell us the bad stuff that the people do, right? We only hear the bad stuff that God did, which is put them all through the flood. When we read this story, we really should prepare ourselves by first going and reading some account of even the smallest of evils that mankind has done against each other. Because when we read this, the awfulness of the flood can be overwhelming. But you've got to remember that the awfulness of the flood was nothing compared to what all of these people were doing. All their thoughts, all their actions were evil all day long. And if you don't have that feeling as you go into this story, I don't think we fully grasp it correctly. Like, we've got to understand human evil. But with that said, just picture for a second. I mean, the text here just says everything dies. It's kind of like reading a book about history where it gives a statistic. You know, like Mao Zedong, the communist leader of China, he murdered 60 million people, invented 163 new forms of torture, which is saying something for mankind. But you hear that, and it just doesn't register because you can't fathom, right? Every one of those people had brothers and sons and mothers and things that missed them, that had, the funeral for them, all these things. Like, it's hard to fathom that amount of pain and evil. And you just hear the statistic. This here is kind of like the statistic. Picture the awfulness of that flood. You're home, right? You're eating breakfast with the kids. All of a sudden, it starts raining. It keeps raining. You're wondering what's coming, and everybody drowns. Everybody. That's what we get to here. Sometimes, too, I think we miss that in the text because, like I said, the Bible's not a pornographic book. It doesn't try to sensationalize what's going on. It actually does us the favor of taming it down a little bit. But we've got to understand the justice of God in this if we don't fully appreciate the evil that's going on. Just an interesting question, like, where did the water go? How did the earth fill up with all the water 15 feet above the high mountain? And then it's all just gone. And for some people that causes them trouble. I don't know why. First of all, remember in the first class I asked if science was going to tell us something. We only trust science if it's a repeated experiment, right? Something we can repeat. Can we all go back and be evil again and see where the water came from? No, we cannot repeat that experiment. In fact, God specifically told us, if you're evil again, I'm not going to do this again, right? The rainbow is the proof you cannot repeat this experiment. So we just have to take God's word for it that he, like, again, I said one of the easiest miracles that he did was create a bunch of water to flood the earth and then get rid of it. Not hard for God. He created the whole earth in the first place. All right, so chapter 8. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the livestock that were with him in the ark, and God made a wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. So this is, I think, one of the first places where we see God, what they call anthropomorphized, like turned into human form, like treated like a human, like he has emotions. And to one extent, it's so that we can relate to God, we can understand what's going on. But does anybody think that God forgot Noah? He didn't know Noah was out there, and all of a sudden one day he just woke up, oh yeah, Noah, I totally forgot. I mean, that's what it says. It says he remembered Noah. So it's critical to understand when the text anthropomorphizes God. When you remember something, it was out of your control. Okay? You didn't have the control of choosing to have the emotion that you had. You just had it. You didn't choose to forget the thing, and you didn't choose to remember it. It just came to you, right? That does not happen to God. The key difference in anthropomorphizing God is that he chooses to feel those things. He chose to remember Noah. It's not like if he had just had a worse day the day before, Noah would have been out there a little longer. When it says God remembered Noah, it means he's decided it's time to act, and he's relating that to us with the word remembered, right? So he both is experiencing remembering, that's what the text says, but he doesn't forget. All right.
How do you spell that word that you just
Oh, you ever heard anthropology?
Yeah.
So anthro in Latin is man. It's like the study of man is anthropology. So anthro, A-N-T-H-R-O. And morphizing, morph is morphe in Greek, it's form. So it's like man form, or in the form of man. Anthropomorphizing. Good question, good question. All right, so now, chapter 8, verse 2. The fountains of the deep and the windows of the heaven were closed. The rain from the heavens was restrained, and the waters receded from the earth continually. At the end of the 150 days, the waters had abated. And in the 7th month, on the 7th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. So, you guys heard of Mount Ararat before? Oh, did I not put that there? I forgot to put it there, sorry. Ah, darn it. I can't bring it up. It's in Turkey, yeah. It is there. There's a mountain called Ararat. You can zoom in on it and you'll see a little outline on the top that people think is maybe the ark. But it's actually a real place. It came to rest on the top of Mount Ararat. That's what it tells us. So, I forgot that one. All right, verse 5. And the waters continued to abate until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. At the end of the 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made and sent forth a raven. It went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. And then he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. But the dove found no place to set her foot, and she returned him to the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her and brought her into the ark with him, and he waited another 7 days. And again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came back to him in the evening, and behold, in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided from the earth. Then he waited another 7 days and sent forth the dove, and she did not return to him any more. In the 601st year, in the 1st month, the 1st day of the month, the waters were dried from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and he looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. In the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth had dried out. Then God said to Noah, "Go out from the ark, you and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals and creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may swarm on the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth." So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves on the earth, went out by families from the ark. And then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, "I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done. While the earth remains, seedtime and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, shall not cease." That is quite a promise. How many of us daily have this low-level fear the world's ending? You know anybody like that? We call it catastrophizing. Right? The world's going to fall apart tomorrow. That is God promising us. Until the end, he gave us 7 years warning at the end. We can find the 7 years at the end to know when it's really going to happen. Until then, we're good. Now this pleasing aroma thing. It sounds like God wasn't going to do this, and then Noah sacrifices the animal, and God smells, it smells like Burger King or something, and he's like, steak, all right, you're fine, I won't destroy the earth again. That's kind of what it sounds like, right? This is anthropomorphizing God. When God smells the pleasing aroma, it's not like you where you didn't have a choice. You smelled the pleasing aroma, and your reaction to that was internal to you that you didn't have the ability to control. God here is choosing to smell the pleasing aroma. Noah sacrificed to him, hoping that he would agree to smell the pleasing aroma. So this is a choice from God. He had a plan, and he said, Noah is asking me to do this. And if you just contrast Noah sacrificing to God to all the people that died in the flood, who spent all of their days just being evil to each other and completely ignoring God, this is a pretty good start to the second half of humanity, right? And so he asks God to smell that aroma. That's why he's sacrificing that. And God says, okay, Noah, I will do that. I agree to smell that pleasing aroma. It's not like he was involuntarily changed his mind. Does that make sense? Now, this is a different thing from all the other stories and actually all the other gods of all the other nations. And you go to all the ancient cultures and you look at how they treat their gods eat. They eat physical food. The Torah came onto the earth as a completely unique thing in all of human history. This did not exist. This God does not need to eat. He did not eat the sacrifice that Noah gave him. All the other gods, that's why you sacrifice to them, so they can eat. In fact, in the temple, God actually has them set up a table, and in the tabernacle later, they call it the table of showbread. And they have to bake bread every day and put on that table, so that at the end of the day, they come back, and when the bread is still there, it's God telling them, I don't eat food. I am not dependent on you. The other gods are all dependent on humanity. Excuse me. All right, so we made it through 7 and 8. So I say, let's tackle our summary of 7 and 8 here. What do we want to title it? Now, we had, on Slack, we had Amanda Summers suggest that we title it, Noah made it through the storm, and God remembered Noah. Anybody have anything they want to add to that title? Or if you think about it, bring it up. So what happens here? And we can get a little bit of what happened in 6 as well. Like if you wanted to do the flood story kind of in a chronology, what do you got? What's first? God talked to Noah. So he told Noah to build the ark, right? Okay. What's next?
What to put in the ark.
Yeah. It's an interesting question. Why did the animals have to die? Why didn't he just wipe out the people?
Collateral damage.
Collateral, yeah. I think there's only really two answers. It's sort of like the animals have no purpose without man. And so destroying man was important enough that the animals could die. I think the second purpose is it does tell us later in Hebrews that God kind of washed the earth clean through this flood. And we know that only blood cleanses sin. So the animal's blood could have been part of what was cleansing the earth off as well. So, good question. All right, what happens after he tells them what to put in the ark? He obeyed. And that's a big one. Like, God may ask us every now and then to have an uncomfortable conversation, but he asked Noah to build the Titanic. That was a tough one. And he did, right? Like, he figured out how to do that. That one always amazes me.
Thankfully, it didn't sink like the Titanic.
That's true. It did not sink like the Titanic. That's a good point. Mankind's version of the ark didn't go as well.
No, it did not.
As God's. All right.
Noah walked with God.
Sure. All right. And then I would say what God said would happen, happened, maybe. Which is the flood. All right. Anything else you guys want to add to that? That'll be our summary for next week.
God closed the door. That's
Okay, very good. Okay.
The flood subsides and then he makes a covenant with Noah.
Very good. That one isn't important. Okay. All right, we're going to jump into chapter 9. All right. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every bird of the heavens, upon everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. You ever been around wild animals and seen that fear and dread that makes no sense at all? Even a dog that you don't know, you just want to pet him. He's like, I mean, you can see that in your daily life. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And as I gave you the green plants, I give you everything. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. And for your lifeblood I will require a reckoning. From every beast I will require it, and from man. From his fellow man I will require a reckoning of the life of man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image. And you, be fruitful and multiply, and increase greatly on the earth, and multiply in it. So we've got some changes here. The Jews actually call this the 7 Noahide laws. That they say basically after the flood, God gives Noah a set of commands and rules that apply to everybody, all of humanity, not just the Jews, because Noah was the father of all of the humanity that came after that. And so one of them is you can't eat an animal while its lifeblood is still in it. Other cultures ate the blood. This was another completely revolutionary, unique thing that the Torah introduced into the world. And partly because just out of practical reasons. Like God prohibited this because before the flood they were doing it. If you don't have refrigeration, how do you get the cow to last longer so you can eat it for 2 or 3 weeks? You cut off the leg and eat that while it's still alive. And then you do another leg and eat that while it's still alive. That's what God is prohibiting here. You cannot be cruel to animals. It's one of the first things. Other cultures did not have this. They didn't have commands about animals. They didn't have things that they were supposed to treat animals well. Humane treatment of animals is one of the first things that God tells us that we need to do here. Another thing is that he says that even an animal who kills a human has to be put to death. The animal doesn't know what it's doing, but because that human is made in the image of God, that animal has to be put to death. It is not fair if Jeff's son was killed by that bull and he has to go look at that bull every day for the rest of his life. And so that brings us to capital punishment. First off, it's important to understand that Hebrew has 2 words for killing. It has a word for murder and it has a word for killing, just like we do in English. All murder is killing, but not all killing is murder. Murder is the unjust killing of an innocent person. That is murder. And what God says is if you do that, you have to be put to death. You have to be. In fact, if we turn quickly to Numbers 35, we're going to go to verse 33. So that's just a little ways over in the Torah here. Numbers 35. Verse 33. You shall not pollute the land in which you live, for blood pollutes the land, and no atonement can be made for the land except for the blood that is shed in. No atonement can be made for the land for the blood that is shed in it, except by the blood of the one who shed it. You shall not defile the land in which you live, in the midst of which I dwell, for I, the Lord, dwell in the midst of the people of Israel. Did you catch what he said there? If you don't put the murderer to death, you are sinning. You are defiling the land just as that murderer defiled the land. Capital punishment is the only law that's repeated in all 5 books of the Torah. It's one of the first ones God gives to all humanity, and he keeps saying it over and over and over and over again. Murderers have to be put to death by men. And so if you feel that capital punishment is unjust, you're welcome to feel that, but recognize you are contrary to what God has told us. That was the one law he told us more than any other one. And if your sense of justice makes you feel like something's unjust about putting that murderer to death, you need to reorient your sense of justice. Take a look at the victim maybe a little bit more than the perpetrator. All right, we're going to come back to Genesis. And we're going to pick back up at verse 8. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, Behold, I establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every beast of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark. It is for every beast of the earth. God actually makes a contract with animals. He actually makes a covenant with animals. It's not just for Noah. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. Remember, he's not forgetting it until the rainbow shows up. It's just you can be sure that when the rainbow's there, God remembers. Verse 16, when the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. And God said to Noah, This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all the flesh that is on the earth. The sons of Noah who went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the people of the whole earth were dispersed. Noah began to be a man of the soil, and he planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk and lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. And then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be to his brothers. He also said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died.
These days we're lucky to live to 90.
Yeah, that is true. So, the only event we have of Noah's life after the flood is this one. Poor guy. Now, to some extent, I think you can take that as proof that this is true. When historians look at historic texts and they try to figure out if it's true, they will look to see if there's anything embarrassing in there. This book of Genesis is nothing but embarrassing to the Israelites. Noah, the father of all mankind, is kind of embarrassing to all of us. But the only thing we record about him here is that he got drunk at some point in time, and he had a bad son, right? So the first thing we should learn from this, I think, is that just because you're a good dad doesn't mean your son's going to be good. And just because you're a bad dad doesn't mean your son has to be bad. In fact, when we go through the book of Kings, you're going to see it kind of cycles. You get good king, bad king, good king, bad king, good king, bad king. Like they cycle. That there's not as much relationship between the moral value system of your children as you would like there to be. Most of the time, I think. Second, doesn't it seem a little weird, the punishment of Ham? Like, it seems a little much. Like he just walked. It reads like from the story, he walked in, saw Dad was naked, and went out and said, Hey, Shem and Japheth, guys, Dad's naked in the tent. And he's like, now his son is cursed forever? Like, so that, of course, has led that's what the story says. That has led a lot of people to speculate about perhaps Ham didn't just see him, right? And perhaps Canaan was involved. It doesn't say it, but the phrase, his nakedness was uncovered and he saw his nakedness, that phrase elsewhere in the Bible does mean some sort of sexual abuse and things that can go on. So it's possible that happened, and that's why when he woke up, he cursed Canaan, and it says that he was angry about what his son had done to him, but it doesn't say that. So it may just be that was the punishment for what he did. He dishonored his father. That was enough. Right? It was totally dishonoring to his father what he did. Instead of covering him up, he goes out to tell his brothers so they can make fun of him. And thankfully, his brothers were good. I do think this story, one of its key things to teach us is don't drink to excess. The Bible doesn't tell us we can't drink at all. But every time it happens in the Bible, bad stuff happens. Look what happened to Noah when he got drunk. Look what happens later when Lot gets drunk. He ends up sleeping with his daughters, and that's where all those other nations come
Oh,
from.
yeah.
The Bible does not look well on excessive drinking.
Well,
All right, so now we're moving on to chapter 10. We are not going to read all of chapter 10, actually any of it, because this is a big list of names. There are 70 nations listed here. Let me see. Remember our little family tree I made? I fixed the zooming. I changed the URL. You just go to aaronalt.com/Bible now and you'll get it. So the 70 nations that we're about to read about here, this was Noah right here, and these are all the people's names that come through later. Remember, the green line is the one that goes to Jesus. In this case, we're telling us this so that we get to Abraham. Now, we had Shem. I know you can't read them, so that's why I'm pointing at them and saying them. We had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. All of the people that come from Shem are known as Shemites, or what we say today, Semites, or Semitic peoples. The term anti-Semite is the one you probably have heard the most. It means hatred of the Jews today, somebody who hates the Jews. It was only coined back in the mid-1800s, and ironically, Abraham's other son, Ishmael, is the father of the Arab peoples. And so, Semites, all the Semitic peoples, are the people that settled in the Fertile Crescent. So all the people who hate the Jews the most, who are the most anti-Semitic, are Semites. So it's just a strange thing about our English. But anyways, these 70 nations are what's all described here. And this chapter, even though we're not going to read it, is another completely revolutionary piece of the Torah. There is nothing else like this in all the rest of history. That God is the God of all the nations. That all the nations came from Noah. That does not happen in any other text anywhere else. This was completely new to humanity. That all those nations came from one place. And actually, I do want to point out, I don't know if you guys have actually read this verse up here. Logos Bible Study, I love these guys. That's not the app, this is a guy who does commentary. So I highly recommend his stuff if you're wanting to go through the Bible verse by verse. But he has this really nice phrase here, or this verse here from Acts 17, about all these nations that we saw here and all the nations we're talking about here. It says, "From one man he made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he determined the times set for them, and the exact places where they should live. God did this so that men would seek him and find him, though he is not far from each of us." Like, this whole timeline, it says God set that in place on purpose in Acts. He knew this was going to happen. He knew all of these nations were going to come from these particular people. That was the plan all along. One interesting thing, just time-wise, in my timeline up here. Oops, might not be able to get there. There we go. I have here where Babel happened. It says in chapter 10 that during the life of Peleg is when the Tower of Babel incident actually occurred. That's when the nations got divided. So that's one thing we can pull out of this chapter. All right. Oh, this is really important too. I don't want to miss this. All of these other nations, we stopped talking about them in the text. It's not because China isn't important. It's not because the nations in Africa aren't important. It's just because they're not part of this story, right? The story is focused in on telling the story of salvation from start to finish. So just because they're not mentioned doesn't mean they're not important. Just because things aren't mentioned in the text doesn't mean God is against them, right? I said in a couple of classes ago that the Bible doesn't mention orange juice. It doesn't mean you can't drink orange juice, right? A lot of people get hung up on what the Bible doesn't say. And so if you are from somewhere else, like just because your nation isn't mentioned in the text doesn't mean your nation wasn't important. It's just it wasn't a key piece of the path to salvation. All right, so chapter 11. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as we don't actually know what that language is, by the way. I don't know if we'll ever figure that out. It'd be interesting to know. What was the one language? And as people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar. There you go. There's Shinar. Here's our Fertile Crescent. There's the two rivers. Came back, there's the land of Israel. This is where Babylon was. This is Iraq of today. This is Iran over here. And the plain of Shinar is somewhere, the plain they found in Shinar is somewhere in here. All right. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the whole face of the whole earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built. And the Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do now will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down, and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord dispersed them over the face of all the earth. Babel is a play on words. The Hebrew Balal means confusion, and so Balal, Babel, they sounded similar. And so even to this day, in English, Babel is B-A-B-B-L-E, like the still we use for confusion. So what did they do? It always struck me that it just didn't seem like some humans down on earth building a tower in a city really justified that we got to split them all up now. It just seems a little strange. So the first thing to understand is what they did is they built a ziggurat. So a ziggurat is a temple that is intended to reunite heaven and earth. Oh, actually, I can come back here. And people these days think that this right here is where that ziggurat was built. You see that square? They think it's called Etemenaki, it's a ziggurat, and that's where they think the actual Tower of Babel was located. Herodotus back in ancient Greece said that that tower was still standing at his time. And so it was a thing, but that is not the only ziggurat in the world, that tower. There are actually a lot of them. So I just had my AI go grab pictures of all of the ziggurats, known ziggurats in the world, and put them here. So you guys go to my webpage and look at them if you want to. But take a look at what these things look like. Here's the ziggurat of Ur, where Abraham was from. You got these steps. It's like this stair-step thing up to a platform on top where they would sacrifice to their gods to reunite heaven and earth. Now let's see. Let me find another good one. Let's take a look at this one. This one's in Mexico. Does that look similar?
Yep.
Right? And it turns out if you look at all these, they look really, really similar. There's one in Guatemala. And so I just asked Grok to find the GPS coordinates of all that and plot them on a map. That's all of them. There's a bunch. Here's where they all are. It's almost like there was like one group of people that built the first one, and then they got dispersed over the whole face of all the earth, and they all went around and started building their own towers at all these different places. Like, they're still there. You can go find them, and that's probably why they all look the same. So remember, so what a ziggurat is intended to do, that's the key. It's intended to unite heaven and earth. It's intended, in this case, for them to say, we will be our own gods. We don't need you, God. And so God says, let us come down. First, there's a little bit of a joke in that, right? Mankind's down there, thinks they're going to make a name for themselves. They're really big, and it's almost like God's like, hey guys, come here. Here's some binoculars. Like, they're down there saying like, we are God, we are God. And he's just like, what are they even saying down there? Like, they were going to build a tower up to the heavens, and God has to actually come down to see what's going on. So it was a little bit of a joke in the text. But he says, let us come down. Who's the us again? You know, I think what we went over before would make sense. This is the heavenly host. These are those sons of God. It says in Deuteronomy that God divided the nations according to the sons of God. So they came down. God says we're going to divide them. And it's sort of like that Oprah Winfrey episode where she was giving everybody a car. Like, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. He was like, you get a nation, you get a nation, you get a nation. That's what he did with his sons according to Deuteronomy. But he left open a path. Like this verse right here that tells us that he decided where all the nations would go so that men would seek him and find him. He left open a path for anybody under any of those other gods to be able to decide to follow him. That was all it took. Anybody, anywhere, in any nation can decide, I want to follow God. there's another key thing I think we see here. First, they were building a city. Okay? A lot of us missed that. We focused on the tower. They were building a city, and the thing they left off building when they got dispersed was they quit building the city, is what the text said. The Bible does not have a high view of cities. When people congregate, the denser we get, the more anonymous we get. And we end up starting to worry about what these other anonymous people are going to do to us. And we start instituting rules and laws to sort of control them. And that eventually creates the systems in which we end up at the totalitarian state that controls everything you're supposed to think. It happens all the time. Like the denser we get, we inevitably end up with ultimate control over each other. Or at least the few at the top having ultimate control over each other. And when it says that they all had the same thoughts and the same words, like they were all thinking the same things, how do you achieve that in humanity where everybody thinks the same things? Totalitarianism. Like you only achieve that through force. This is part of what these people were doing, right? They were forcing everybody into this city and saying, you know, the leaders are going to enforce everything that we think everybody needs to do. The other thing God tells us, and this is completely counterintuitive, is that unity is not good. It was very fashionable for the last 100 years to say things like, I'm a citizen of the world. I'm not a citizen of my nation. I'm a citizen of the world. This was a key piece of communism, that we were going to save the world all under one communist government that could just take care of everybody. God tells us, nope. Actually being a citizen of the world is not the ideal situation. That's not a good thing. Nationalism is better. It is better to have Germans who are proud of being German, and Americans who are proud of being American, and Chinese who are proud of being Chinese, as long as they're following God. Right? That this is a better world. We don't all have to be the same. We just need to be good. That's what God wants from us. And so, in fact, usually when people call for unity, it's totally disingenuous. When they say we all need to be united, what they mean is united under my values. They don't mean I'm going to give up what I think is right, you know, so that we can all be united. The unity call is this Trojan horse to try to get you under their control. So I thought that was a really interesting thing. It is definitely part of the Tower of Babel that God does not want us to be all united, because we will, in our unity, create evil. We will multiply evil. But it is important to notice that these guys set out to make a name for themselves. They wanted to bring glory to themselves, and they made a name for themselves. It's Babel. It means confusion. We only know about them because the God that they were throwing off wrote it down in this book to teach us not to do that. Right? That's the name that they made for themselves. And I think one last thing we can say about this part is that they sought fame, right? They wanted to make a name for themselves. Fame is destructive. The least happy people in the world are the famous. That's why they're all addicted to drugs. That's why they commit suicide. People aren't made to be looked up to like pseudo-gods by other people. And so I think those are all parts of this story that we can pull out of just those few verses there. So let's wrap this up. We'll start back on verse 10, where these are the generations of Shem. I'm not going to read all the names there. We're going to jump down to when we get to Abraham. So verse 26. So Terah was Abraham's dad. When Terah had lived 70 years, he fathered Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah fathered Abraham, Nahor, and Haran, and Haran fathered Lot. Haran died in the presence of his father Terah in the land of his kindred, in Ur of the Chaldeans. And Abraham and Nahor took wives. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah. That does seem a little redundant. Milcah was his daughter. He was the father of Milcah. That's not Haran, his brother, by the way. There was a Haran up in the other list. It was his uncle. So he didn't take his brother's daughter as a wife.
I should have known.
Yes. So, okay, Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and Iscah. Now Sarai was barren. She had no child. I'm sure most of us, especially females, you would rather he would say something nice first, rather than just, you're barren, that's all we know, you know. Like, she was pretty, she was something. Nope, just Sarah was barren. Terah took Abraham his son, and Lot the son of Haran, his grandson, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth together from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. The days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. So, that's this path. Takes a while to zoom back out to space. Sorry. Right, here's Ur. That's where Abraham started out. And he's going to Canaan. Remember, that's where Israel's at. There we go. He's going over here. But if you remember from our second class, nobody crosses the desert. You don't go from Ur to Israel, across the desert and over the mountains. You go from Ur to Israel by going up this way through the valley, through the Fertile Crescent, the Tigris-Euphrates River Valley. You go that way, and then you come down either the coast or the King's Highway. But that's how you get here. And so here is Haran. So he started here. They went up this way, and they stopped there because Terah was, 200 and some years old. I could see why he might want to break. And it says he actually died up there in Haran before coming down into Canaan. So with that, we got to the end of chapter 11. Maybe. I know you guys didn't think we could do 3 chapters in a day. Next week, we're going to do 12 through 15. We're going to try 3 chapters again. But we have now finished bucket number 1. Bucket number 1 ended at the chapter 11, where now we switch over into the story of Abraham.